We're grateful for each and every one of you. Let us know where in the world you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's begin. My name is Dr. Logan Carter, and the night I told my wife, if you walk out that door, don't come back, I wasn't being dramatic. I was done being silent. What led to that moment wasn't a single explosion. It was a slow-motion implosion. Years of giving, sacrificing, shrinking, until I barely recognized my own life anymore. When I first met Aubrey Mitchell, I was fresh out of med school, fueled by ambition and crushed under $180,000 in student loans. Every waking hour was filled with rotations, residencies, and exhaustion. I wore my stethoscope like armor, and I carried my dreams in silence. Aubrey was lightning, bold, magnetic, effortlessly social. She worked in luxury retail at one of Dallas's high-end designer outlets and could sell a five-figure handbag to a woman who just came in for a scarf. Everyone adored her, especially me. Her eyes had a way of making you feel like the only person in the room, and back then, she made me feel like I mattered more than the chaos I was buried in. She showed up, always. She brought me food during graveyard shifts, left handwritten notes in my coat pockets, and waited outside the hospital when I collapsed from a 36-hour stretch. So I married her. We didn't have the big wedding she dreamed of, just a cozy ceremony in an old white church with a few friends, her sister Reese crying, and my brother Zane cracking bad jokes. We promised each other the usual things: patience, growth, honesty, and love. I believed we would do all of it, but life doesn't always follow vows. In the first 2 years, I buried myself in work. I had one goal: clear my debt and build us a future. I didn't take vacations. I didn't buy a car. I took back-to-back hospital shifts, sometimes falling asleep in break rooms or parked in the ER a lot with the engine running. I wanted to be free by 30, to walk into a home I could pay off, raise kids without financial panic, and give Aubrey the life she deserved. She supported that dream, or so I thought. When I suggested waiting to have children until the debt was gone, her face shifted. "You're always calculating, Logan," she whispered. "What about living?" I told her we would live. Just not yet. We needed foundation before we built sky. But she didn't want foundation. She wanted freedom. She wanted children now. A house now. Vacations. Spontaneity. Life. I wanted her to feel loved, so I bent. I bought the house. I took more shifts. I said yes to everything she asked. Hardwood floors, quartz countertops, imported fixtures, custom closets. All of it. I was never home, but the lights were always on. By year 3, something changed. The woman who used to run into my arms started pulling away. When I came home late, she was already asleep. When I left early, she stayed in bed, barely murmuring goodbye. I thought she was just tired. We all were. But tired doesn't explain perfume on a blouse she wore to yoga, or mysterious weekends visiting her cousin in Phoenix, who I later learned had moved to Oregon a year ago. She started locking her phone. Then she stopped texting back during breaks. And she didn't notice when I stopped asking. I still remember the night I knew something was broken. I came home early, an unexpected break from an ER shift. I stepped into the living room and heard her on a call. Her voice was softer than I remembered, laughing, flirty. "Don't say that. You're bad," she said. Then silence. A low murmur I couldn't make out. Her smile lingered. When she saw me, she froze. Then forced a laugh. "Just Reese," she said. "She's drunk." I didn't believe her, but I nodded anyway. I was too exhausted to fight. A week later, I checked our home security logs. We had installed a smart lock with guest codes. Hers, mine, and a mysterious third, used twice while I was on night duty. So I hired a private investigator. I told myself it was crazy, paranoid, dishonest. But betrayal has a smell, and my house reeked of it. For 3 weeks, I said nothing. I smiled. I brought her flowers. I acted like the perfect husband, even as I waited for evidence that I wasn't being insane. It came on a Monday. Photos, videos, hotel logs. Aubrey had been seeing Graham Keller, the CEO of an up-and-coming real estate firm, married with 2 children and a condo downtown. They weren't careful. They met in our city, at our favorite cafe, at a hotel 10 minutes from our house. I stared at the pictures for hours. Then I closed them. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. Instead, I planned. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to ask why. I was going to win. But first, I had to let her make her final mistake. And she did. That Friday night, she came down the stairs in a tight black dress she hadn't worn in years. "I'm going out," she said flatly. I stood up slowly, heart thudding. "If you walk out that door, don't come back." She scoffed, rolled her eyes. "Logan, don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm ending it." She left anyway. And while she was out with her lover, I moved fast. I called my attorney. I booked a hotel. And I set the trap. Because Aubrey thought she had won. She thought I was just a quiet, exhausted man who'd never dare to fight back. She didn't know I'd been collecting evidence for weeks. She didn't know I was already in touch with Graham's wife. She didn't know I had planned something that would rip her entire fantasy life apart. She didn't know the storm was coming. I didn't go back to the house that night. Instead, I sat in a downtown hotel suite, flipping through pages of legal prep my lawyer had emailed me just hours earlier. My name was on everything: mortgage, assets, bank accounts. I had protected myself early on, never thinking I'd need the safeguards, but signing every paper with the precision of a man who believed in plans more than promises. At 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was a text from Aubrey. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. 10 minutes later, another one came through. "I came home, and you're not here." "Logan?" Still, I stayed silent. I wasn't trying to scare her. I was trying to let the weight of her choices sink in. I knew her well, too well. She didn't like silence. She liked control. Silence, to her, meant danger. By sunrise, she had sent 6 texts. One said, "Please talk to me." Another said, "You're overreacting." I showered, got dressed, and made my way to the law office. My lawyer, Melissa Braxton, was a sharp-witted woman who had handled some of the nastiest divorce cases in the county. She was already sipping her second coffee when I walked in. "You ready for this?" she asked. I nodded. I've been ready since the night I watched my wife smile into another man's eyes. We filed that morning. The next day, Aubrey was served at her workplace, her glass and marble designer showroom that she loved to brag about. I knew it would sting. She always liked to keep her image polished. She didn't call right away. She waited until the end of the day, then finally dialed. Her voice was breathless, shaken. "You sent me divorce papers?" she asked, her voice tight with disbelief. "I did," I replied evenly. "You wanted freedom. I'm giving it to you." There was a pause. "You don't have to do this. We can talk. You had your chances," I said. "Now it's my turn." Then I sent her the folder. Photos, texts, timestamps, everything the private investigator had dug up. When she opened the file, I heard her breath catch through the phone. "You followed me." "No," I said calmly. "I followed the truth." She was quiet, for once, and in that stillness, I could feel her world tilting. She thought she was untouchable, that she could live 2 lives and never be held accountable. But now the 2 worlds were colliding, and I held the match. Later that week, I met with Callie Keller, the wife of Aubrey's affair partner. Callie was younger than Aubrey, with soft curls, tired eyes, and a toddler balanced on her hip. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She looked at the evidence and whispered, "I knew it. I just didn't want to know it." I handed her a flash drive with everything I had. And together, we made a plan. Because Graham wasn't just cheating. He was using company funds to book hotel suites. Some of the receipts bore the name of Keller and Finch Properties, a firm worth tens of millions. That meant misappropriation of funds. That meant corporate scandal. That meant leverage. And I had plenty of it. Meanwhile, Aubrey began spiraling. She sent me emails begging to reevaluate our relationship. She showed up on my old hospital shift, pretending she wanted to talk. But I didn't meet her with anger. I met her with distance. And silence. The same silence she'd given me for years. I wasn't going to destroy her life publicly, yet. But I made it clear I wasn't bluffing. Either she signed a clean split, gave up her claim to alimony, and walked away quietly, or I would go to the media with everything. At first, she tried to play tough. Then she folded. Because Aubrey loved her image more than she loved anything else. The papers were signed the next week. But I wasn't done. The house, the one I bled for, was now mine. She moved out within 3 days, taking only what she could carry. I changed the locks that night, and then I did something I hadn't done in years. I slept, peacefully. For the first time in nearly a decade, I wasn't walking on eggshells in my own home. But this isn't a story about divorce. This is a story about revenge. And Aubrey's chapter was just the beginning, because 1 month later, I received an email from an anonymous address. Subject line, "You're not the only one she lied to." Attached, a video clip of Aubrey in another city, on a date with a third man. A different man, which meant the affair with Graham wasn't her only betrayal. She had a pattern, and she had left a trail. I smiled, because I had just started to rebuild my life. I had returned to my old self, started working fewer shifts, reconnected with friends I had lost along the way. I even started going to the gym again. I had plans, real ones. But I also had a purpose now, because some stories don't end with signatures. They end with consequences. And Aubrey Mitchell hadn't faced hers yet. Not truly. She thought walking away made her the winner. She had no idea what was coming next. 6 weeks after the divorce, just as the dust was beginning to settle, I got a call from an unknown number while leaving the gym. "Logan Carter," a deep voice asked. "Yes. This is Detective Warren from the Dallas Metro Financial Crimes Division. We'd like to ask you a few questions about a woman named Aubrey Mitchell." I froze. Not because I was worried, because I was curious. I agreed to meet the following afternoon. When I arrived at the station, the detective offered me coffee. I declined. He opened a manila file. "Did you know your ex-wife was under investigation for insurance fraud?" That stopped me. Apparently, shortly before our divorce, Aubrey had filed 2 fraudulent claims. One for a stolen handbag valued at over $15,000, and another for a set of vintage jewelry she claimed was lost in transit. But neither item existed. There were no receipts, no photos, just her word. And now, under scrutiny from a disgruntled ex-friend who worked at her insurance agency, the claims were being reopened. I told him the truth. We hadn't spoken beyond legal communication, and I had no access to her current affairs. But deep down, a storm of satisfaction brewed inside me. Aubrey had walked away from our marriage thinking she was untouchable. But now life was catching up to her, and fast. And as fate would have it, I was about to throw the final punch. 2 days later, I was invited to speak at a private gala organized by the Texas Medical Foundation. It was an event that attracted donors, doctors, and executives from all over the state. Guess who showed up? Graham Keller. Not with Callie, not with his family, but with Aubrey. Bold move. I saw her the moment I stepped into the ballroom, wearing a red satin dress, her hand looped around his arm like nothing had ever happened. She hadn't seen me yet, but she would. And when she did, she choked, mid-sip of champagne. I gave her a slow, deliberate smile and raised my glass. She froze. Graham glanced at her, confused, then looked at me. Recognition flickered. Panic followed, because Graham thought it was over, that I'd moved on, that I'd been defeated and silenced. He didn't know I'd kept copies. He didn't know Callie had hired her own attorney. He didn't know I had a contact in local media with a thirst for public scandal. The next day, an anonymous tip was sent to the Dallas Ledger, complete with documents detailing Graham's company expenses, his overlapping travel logs with Aubrey, and grainy surveillance stills of them exiting a high-end hotel together on multiple occasions, some of which were during work hours, billed as executive meetings. Within 72 hours, Keller and Finch Properties suspended him pending internal review. By the end of the week, their board had accepted his resignation in light of personal matters. Aubrey, she was radio silent, but it wasn't over. The fallout had only just begun. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. I bought a vintage car, not because I needed one, but because I had always wanted one. I started working part-time at the local clinic to help underfunded families. I spent evenings walking my dog through trails I hadn't visited since college. And then something strange happened. I met someone. Her name was Rachel. She was a trauma counselor, soft-spoken but razor-sharp, with an inner strength I admired instantly. She wasn't flashy. She wasn't looking for status. She wasn't trying to fix anyone. She was just real. We started slow. Coffee turned into dinner, dinner into deep conversations, and those into something warmer. One night, I told her everything. The debt, the long shifts, the betrayal, the divorce. She listened, not with pity, but with grace. "You didn't fail," she said. "You just gave more than someone was ready to receive." That line stayed with me. I was beginning to believe in good things again. But fate wasn't quite done with Aubrey yet. A few weeks later, Callie sent me a video. It was taken from a parking garage security camera. Graham, mid-shouting match with Aubrey. Red-faced. Aggressive. He slammed the car door. She screamed something. He drove off without her. According to Callie, Graham had discovered that Aubrey had been simultaneously seeing someone else, a contractor named Jordan she met while remodeling his vacation home. The irony? It shattered Graham. He lost everything. His job, his wife, his home. And now, the woman he risked it all for had turned around and cheated on him too. Karma doesn't always arrive on time, but it never forgets the address. Aubrey was now toxic to everyone she'd once seduced. Friends had backed away. Former co-workers whispered. Rumors spread like wildfire. And the final blow? The IRS had launched an audit into her finances. The fraudulent claims had opened a Pandora's box. She was unraveling, alone, exposed, and finally facing the truth she had outrun for years. But I wasn't celebrating. I didn't need her to collapse to feel whole. I was finally standing tall again, not because I hurt her, but because I healed myself, because I chose peace over vengeance, love over bitterness, and because I remembered something important. The best revenge is living well and being unreachable to the ones who thought they could ruin you. A few months passed. Life became quiet in the best way. I was still working part-time, still seeing Rachel, and for the first time in years, my days weren't shaped by tension or second-guessing. I didn't constantly check my phone. I didn't dread walking through my front door. Then one evening, I received a letter, handwritten, from Aubrey. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. I was selfish. I was reckless. I see that now. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to say it, to own it. I hope you're doing well. I really do. No begging. No excuses. Just a letter. I didn't respond, because I didn't need to. I had already let her go the night she chose someone else over our marriage. But strangely, the letter didn't make me angry. It made me grateful. She was finally looking in the mirror. That wasn't for me. It was for her. And maybe that was part of healing too. Rachel and I had been seeing each other for nearly 6 months by then. Nothing flashy. No grand promises. Just consistency. One rainy afternoon, we sat on my porch sipping coffee. You ever think about what you'd say to her? She asked gently. I already did, I said, the night I didn't answer her call. Rachel smiled softly. Then I think you're free. And I was. Not just from Aubrey, but from the version of me that once believed love meant sacrificing everything, especially myself. A week later, I got a message from Callie again. Apparently, Aubrey had tried to reconnect with Graham after her last affair blew up. He refused. Word around town was she was moving to Chicago to start over. She had burned every bridge here, but I didn't care where she went anymore. That chapter was closed. On the 1-year anniversary of our divorce being finalized, I stood in my driveway, looking at the house I almost lost, and I realized something. She took pieces of me when she left, but I built new ones, stronger ones. I found out what love looks like when it's real, when it doesn't demand you shrink, when it doesn't punish you for sacrifice. And I finally understood. Some endings aren't punishments. They're rescue missions. You just don't see it while you're still inside the fire. 16 months after Aubrey walked out of my life, I stood at the edge of a quiet lake with Rachel beside me. The sun was dipping low, the sky painted in soft golds and deep oranges. She leaned against me, calm, steady, real. I never thought peace could look like this, I said. She smiled. That's because you lived in chaos too long to recognize it. She was right. It took everything I had, pain, patience, and honesty, to get here. But I wasn't haunted anymore. Aubrey's name hadn't crossed my lips in months, and that felt like the biggest victory of all. I heard from mutual friends that she eventually did move to Chicago, started some lifestyle consulting thing. New photos, new filters, new captions about self-growth and second chances. But the truth? She was still running. From herself. From the ruins she left behind. She would post pictures with vague captions like, healing isn't linear. But people who knew her, they stopped watching. They moved on, just like I had. The last time I ever saw her name in my inbox was a single line. I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't reply, because by then, it wasn't about her anymore. It was about who I became without her. Stronger, smarter, and finally whole. Now, Rachel and I live a quieter life. We travel. We laugh. We cook together in the evenings and walk our dog at night. There's no drama. No suspicion. Just two people learning how to love without losing themselves. She never asked me to forget what happened. She just stood beside me while I healed. And for that, I'm forever grateful. To anyone out there who's been betrayed, who's been worn down and used up in the name of love, listen to me. You're not weak for walking away. You're not broken because someone broke their vows. And you are not unlovable because one person failed to see your worth. If you're reading this, take it from me. Don't chase someone who left you empty. Build the life you deserve. And if you're lucky, you'll find someone who loves your scars, not in spite of them, but because of them. Because that's what real love does. It doesn't ask you to bleed. It helps you heal.